I just shoved all the deepest fears, conditionings, anything that I didn't want to look at or didn't even know was there. It took it out and shoved it in my face, and I had no way to not look.
Yeah.
So it was terrifying, but everything changed from then on.
Welcome to the Alive and Aligned podcast, a show dedicated to helping you live a life of truth and share your fullest gifts with the world. I'm your host, Pete Byrne, and I'm here to open your mind to new perspectives, to introduce you to some epic humans who are already out there living their deepest truth. So now just grounding in, taking a breath, letting go of anything you're still holding on to from today, and just opening up to receiving this episode now. Let's dive on in. René Schwarzgruber is a relationship coach, a connected breathwork facilitator, and the co-founder of a successful travel company in the Greek islands. But most importantly, he's someone who is not afraid to break tradition and challenge the opinions of those around him in the pursuit of living a fulfilled and happy life. Growing up in a small city in Austria, he followed the natural path of many in the Western world, spending his early working years in a traditional banking environment and playing football for his local team. But deep down, he always knew that the average 9-to-5 life was not for him. So he took his first leap of faith and broke the mold early by going against the advice of everyone around him and moving to Norway. And from there, he became an avid traveler, and this led to him co-founding the travel company Life is a Beach Party. This sparked over a decade of organizing party holidays of a lifetime for thousands of young people from around the world. But it wasn't all cheap vodka shots. He was also been working with some high-level football teams, helping them plan their trips, and also connecting people and managing properties in all across Europe and around the world. In more recent years, René has made Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, his home, and after becoming intrigued with dating, polarity, and why many modern relationships don't work out, he became a relationship coach who helps Western men build happy, sustainable relationships with Eastern European women. However, after fleeing the war in Ukraine and helping dozens of Ukrainian refugees find homes and work in his home country of Austria, he has since transitioned into a new life, finding a new home base and a new level of purpose. As he nears the completion of a 400-hour breathwork facilitator training in Bali, which I am a teaching support on, René is ready to bring his unique life experience and passion for helping others back to Europe. In this podcast, we dive into the things that motivated René to carve a life path different to everyone else, how he's dealt with being misunderstood, judged, and criticized by others for following a different path, his humbling and profound experience in the jungles of Peru, how me and René first met and how our paths have interwoven over the past decade. How early childhood experiences can be the thing causing most of your modern day problems. And finally, why René believes that connected breathwork is a modality that can change the world and how it's already changed his life in so many ways. I hope you enjoy this episode, guys. Let's dive in. Mr. René, a very warm welcome to the podcast. How are you feeling?
Thank you. Feeling good. Had a little tennis and ice bath session in the morning, and also, excited and a little nervous with my newly identified issue of over-explaining, which wouldn't be great for a podcast, so I'm trying to keep it short enough so it's interesting for people to listen.
Sure, well, I don't know, it depends what lens we look through.
Yeah.
How was your first ice bath experience this morning? Official ice bath experience.
It was empowering because I thought I can't do it that long, and I guess the combination of having some motivating voices and peer pressure actually made me, no, you're going to stay in there. And I did longer than I thought I could, which, was a great moment for me to see, hey, actually I can do more than, which in general is great to have such experiences. Just unlocks other things as well. Hey, I can maybe do this as well, and maybe I can do that as well.
Totally. Yeah, we've got this friend, Lincoln, who's like this super biohacking guy, and he's really into his ice baths, very into his ice baths. Yeah. So it's nice to try new things and expand the capacity.
Sure. Yeah.
Nice. So you've been in Bali now, how long?
Came to Bali on the 4th of January, so 3 months, roughly.
And how's it been?
Yeah, wow, it's been
a bit of a journey.
A very transformational period. I think the things I learned about myself in the last 3 months were equivalent to a couple of years looking in the past. So, yeah, it's been great.
So, I suppose to put the last 3 months, which we'll dive into later, in perspective, but maybe we can talk a little bit about like you and where you're from and what's brought you to here today.
Yeah.
So yeah, give us the 3-minute elevator pitch of like where you grew up and what brought you like the different paths of life.
Yeah, I grew up in a small village in the west of Austria. So the life I lived the last 10 years is very unusual for where I'm from. Austrians
not
are
a farmer.
No, and even Austrians are not travelers. Like, even if you're backpacking, you don't really meet Austrians.
It's true, actually, yeah.
They go to Turkey to all-inclusive for a week or two, and they don't really go backpacking through India or Thailand. Like, it's quite unusual. But my mom told me, I was already, when I was 7 years old, I would wake up every morning and I was putting on the news channel where you can see all the capital cities of the world and the weather. And I would watch the weather every day because I was always so fascinated with the world. Yeah. And there was early on something inside me that just wanted to go out there. So, but really the moment that, because I was obviously limited by the environment, like nobody moved abroad, nobody did something out of the ordinary, so I had nobody to look up to or follow the footsteps in. And really what did it for me was I had a girlfriend, she was from Norway, and her dad got sick and we didn't know if he was going to make it, so she needed to move back to Norway and I went with her. And that was kind of my excuse to really live this normal life, working in a bank, playing football. And there I was in Norway, completely different country, and that was really that started everything for me. Like the whole.
So before
journey.
You were working in the bank playing football, and then that was the thing that pulled you out and brought you.
That was this big reason that made me leave. Like otherwise, it was like good enough. I didn't know how, like, where would I go, but this was like, and then suddenly a whole new world opened up. And possibilities. So. And
with that, because I can relate to that story of like living in Dublin and kind of feeling like my life was mapped out.
Yeah.
Or feeling like, what more is there? Yeah. Even though there was a deeper part of me that was thinking there must be more.
Yeah.
There was no path. There was no, clear thing or clear sign of like, okay, this is the next step. Do you find there's a lot of people that tend to fall into that where they are maybe like thinking there's got to be more to life, but are also just in a routine and maybe in their hometown or in a city and maybe stuck in the same routine and not knowing how to move forward?
Yeah, so many. Like on this big global level of, hey, how do I want to live my life? But even it goes so much further. Even me now, who has been living 15 years, exploring, just this weekend, I had complete shift of perspective in a few things that were so normal to me, and I didn't even know that this was possible. It's just, and I remember the first couple of years when I left Austria, so many people came up to me and said, "You're so brave doing that." Brave, and for me it was just like, no, I had to do it. Like, this is so good. But they said, I would love to do that, but I could never do that. It's just so many things that hold people back. And it's just not a possibility in their brain. It's like, oh, it's a cool thought, it's a dream, it's like in a movie, but you can't really live this life that we're supposed to live.
Sure, and so one question, like as we continue through the journey of the story, what do you think? Because I'd imagine there's another scenario where like maybe you were even in love with this girl, or you were very into this girlfriend. Yeah. There could also be people who could say, no, I can't leave. I have to stay here in Austria. Goodbye. See you next lifetime. So what do you think it was in you that was different from many of those other people?
This was really inside of me for a long time, I think. I just needed an excuse to go for it. Yeah. It's like, it was almost like when her dad got sick. Yes, of course I was sad and empathetic with her, but I thought immediately, okay, I got to go to Norway. Yeah. But I was actually really excited. So yeah, yeah, it was just sitting there, and all I needed was a way
Permission.
to also explain it to my parents
Yes.
and to my friends.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
And that's huge, I think, because it's like whatever about our own internal like fears or desires, and like, can I do it? Am I ready? You know, the personal challenge. But there's then dealing with the conditioning and the pressure of those around us that are keeping us held in that like holding position, so that they can maybe feel more comfortable in themselves as to why they're not doing it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that excuse is really important, and we can come back to that later. Is like, what are the different excuses that someone who's waiting for permission can find? You know, to step into that new life, as well as, of course, showing them the path, you know, and making that easier. So you went to Norway. What happened then?
Went to Norway. My first job was shoveling snow from roofs because it was extremely a tough long winter, and my ex-girlfriend's brother was working in a company where they did that. So basically the day I arrived, I woke up at 5 a.m. and went through the roofs of Norway and shoveled snow down.
Wow.
So that was like the start.
Very glamorous.
Very glamorous, yeah, from the bank. Obviously, I couldn't speak the language.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do that type of job. And then the next week I got a bartender job, and the boss only hired me because I told him on the phone that I was working in a bank before, and he somehow misunderstood me, thinking I was working in a bar before. So when I turned up, I had no idea what I was doing, and it was a Saturday night, and it went terribly wrong, but I got along with him so well on a personal level that he said, yeah, okay, just come in Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to teach you everything. It was great because I learned the language within, I think, 2 months.
Yeah.
Working in the bar,
Wow.
also having this euphoria of, wow, I'm starting to live my life now. I'm in Norway. Like, I'm in this country where there's no other Austrians there. It's just me. I'm in this experience. I'm a pioneer. Like, I'm doing this.
Like,
you know,
Christopher Columbus discovering the new world.
And always loved Scandinavian girls, of course. Suddenly you're there in the bar and meeting so many new people every day. And even though then I still had a girlfriend, but at this time in my life, you know, I still loved the attention and affection of anybody I could get. Not that I acted on it all the time, but you know, this was like also something back then that was really appealing to me, and yeah.
And then you mentioned like everyone at home telling you that you're so brave, you know? So tell me about the bravery that led you to starting the company, Life is a Beach Party.
Again, for other people it would have been bravery. For me, it was just, I want to have fun.
Yeah.
This was like all I was about. I wanted to have fun, and I met this guy from Australia, and we said, let's start a company, endless summer, where we can basically party, meet people, bring people together, meet girls. Like, it was all about that. And when I look back now, the first posts we did on Facebook in our business plan, I'm actually embarrassed reading the first post, and people were like kind of like laughing as well. And I thought, oh, they're just jealous. But now looking back, they were kind of right. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we had such a passion, just blind passion, with no idea about tourism, no idea about business. We were partying all the time. So, yeah, it was really just my thirst for living life to the fullest and proving everybody wrong at home as well. Hey, this is possible. You can live differently. And yeah, just went for it. And over the years, things changed, obviously.
So tell us, like, what is Life's a Beach Party? That's been like, what, 10 years?
2012, yeah. We started.
11 years. Wow. So what was the theme and the concept, like the vision behind that, and how has it evolved? What do you do? Or what have you
the vision, I think back then we just wanted to make a website because I was in Norway, then I was in Austria, and I started to realize, hey, Austrians only really go to 3 or 4 places.
Yeah.
And I thought that's like the summer destinations where you go to. But when I lived in Norway, I saw they go to places I've never heard about, and they looked even more fun. And then I talked to my friend from Australia, and Australians who come to Europe, there's again more islands and places. And I was like, wow, what if we make a website that highlights all of these places and that can kind of connect people from countries that usually don't go there and open up new travel plans for them where they can meet people from all over the world rather just their own nationality.
Sure.
That was kind of the idea because that was so appealing to me myself. So yeah, but again, we had no idea. We were just traveling around, drinking, making some videos, very bad quality.
Yeah.
And then we took 2 beautiful young Norwegian girls with us as kind of bloggers. And it was before the time of blogging wasn't really a thing.
Sure.
So we got
before people were using phones, like
properly. Instagram, no, nothing there. And then the girls, again, watching those videos now, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, it's so bad.
You got to go on YouTube. What would you search for? Like, Life's the Beach Party, summer.
Actually, I think the worst videos we removed.
Come on, we got to put them back up.
Yeah, but still, there's some. Yeah, and the girls basically just talking. Oh, we're here. It's so much fun. Oh my God,
we're partying. Yeah,
everybody's so drunk, and I was so proud and funny. But it somehow worked. We got into some news articles and then people really started to say, hey, looks fun. When can we go with you? And then we said, fuck it, next year, let's just let people book. That's how the travel agency started. We had 80 people in the first year. We got some Norwegian blogger to write about us. And then, that was it. And then we made a video about it. And this video was also before the time when everybody had like these cool videos. And it really, boom, everybody loved it. And that's how it started. And then I would say, year after year, a little bit less party, a little bit more business understanding, but still very slow progress.
Yes.
Because fun was still the most important thing. But the biggest thing I learned in all these years was, which comes back to one of my biggest fears and personality issues that I struggle with, is I went to this island thinking everybody's going to like me. I'm going to bring people here. We're all going to be one big happy family. And surely if I'm nice always, everybody is going to love me. And just a wake-up call that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try to be the nicest, best person, there's always going to be at least a third of people who just don't like you. So you just got to learn to deal with that. And this was so difficult for me. And I struggled so long with that.
Yeah, totally. So. And it's been interesting, like, because we're reflecting on this story, and also at the moment, like, we'll come to it later, but like this breathwork practitioner training that we're both in the container, we're both part of that, and getting to look at these deeper patterns that maybe, like, we're talking about the past 11 years starting this company, all that's unfolded, and how some of these behaviors could have been driving life decisions, and how we almost can't even see another option because it's like the brain doesn't even allow us to have that thought because these patterns are so strong. No, I must do all these things so people can like me.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's not an option.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. And
to some degree, like I think I was a very flawed young man, like in terms of things that I thought and did that weren't helpful for me. Not even talking about others. I was nice, but just for myself. But at the same time, I was so convinced I was this typical person who said, oh, well, that's just how I am. Oh, it's not my fault. That's just me.
Yeah.
Like thinking I was convinced that's just me and there's no way I can change that.
Yeah.
And and even, oh, I'm jealous, or, oh, he's jealous. And that was just the way it was. And now I look at, if somebody tells me my boyfriend is so jealous, I'm like, okay, so really he's afraid.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Totally. Like, it's like all coming back to the smaller and deeper insecurities that are masquerading as these surface level behaviors. Yeah. Like someone's very aggressive. Oh, you're hitting on my girlfriend. No, you're just scared that, he doesn't respect you or she's going to leave you, basically. But down the rabbit hole. So Life's a Beach Party. How did that begin to grow then in terms of, so originally it started like you were going to different destinations and then how did that evolve over time?
Yeah, it was, as said, those videos, like we took a leap of faith, really. We saw these guys in Crete that created this amazing video for this big venue, Star Beach in Crete, Mm-hmm. And even though we had no money, we knew we need a video like this. Mm-hmm. It was creating so many emotions inside myself when I watched it and showed my friends. I was like, I want this because this is something I can be proud of, and surely this will motivate others to also come. So it was for sure those videos that started it, but then also my connection to Norway, because I was living there. I could speak the language. I was literally driving from school to go to talk to people and explain why EOS is the best, why what we are doing is the most fun, and super skeptical, especially in Norway. Like everything that's not Norwegian and that you have to give money to, you know, Norway is best. That's their mentality, and they're very. It was very hard to convince them. Yeah. And if I couldn't speak the language, I don't think it would have been possible. But then, you know, some schools went, they loved it, and then word of mouth basically just went boom. And then we became the biggest. The graduation students in Norway called themselves Russ. Yeah. And we actually became the biggest Russ graduation trip provider in Norway. We have every year, only in the last week of July, like 800 18-year-olds from Oslo area that book with us, and we bring Norwegian DJs and all of that. So, yeah.
Sounds like a party.
It is.
Roots is an interesting concept. It's basically like, for anyone who hasn't heard of it, it's like pretty much like in Norway, they have this thing where they save up money for like 2 years, and their parents also give them money, and like for 1 month before they do their final exams.
Yes,
before their final exams, they just like, it's bonkers. They literally have this month where they just go for, like, they go insane. So each school buys like, or maybe within the school there's different groups. They buy a bus and they paint the bus and they deck it out. Like, spend thousands and thousands of like dollars in this. They'll hire a DJ to come play on the bus, and like maybe a big
they
producer.
make their own songs.
They make their own songs, which go in the charts in Norway. Yeah. And they all go around just like drinking and partying all day, all night, like all just like fucking sleeping with each other and partying and doing, like, you basically get like awards for like if you run naked through the center of the city, if you like have sex in a tree, you get a badge to put on these trousers that they wear, like red or blue trousers, depending what.
Even girls, some groups of girls have competitions who kisses and sleeps with most guys.
Yeah.
And it's like showcased on their red Rus outfit.
Yeah. And they wear like a badge of honor almost.
Yeah. And these buses, like, they're not normal buses. They pimp them to a level where if it's driving somewhere around town 2 kilometers from your house, you can still hear the bass.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, of course, you know, at that age, like, one can imagine it's like the strong desire to prove self and ego, and like it's who has the biggest dick, basically, you know, and who has the most money,
and the concept, who is the best concept, who has the best song, who has there's also awards at these big gatherings. And, you know, actually in some way it's good, because it's almost like they're running the first business. Yeah. Like, the people responsible for it, they really plan that for years. And it's some good things about it as well. Yeah. Yeah,
it's kind of like, you know, it's not like a fraternity, but it's that kind of vibe where you got a collection of young people coming together to create like an insane party environment, basically. Yeah. Different style. Like, obviously it's younger and it's only for 1 month. But then, they basically finish it on the national day, like by not sleeping for 48 hours and just partying while everyone else is in their traditional outfits and like marching. They're like fucking partying. And for some reason, like, the police and everyone's in on it. They all like, they'll see them like running naked through the city and be like, oh yeah, I remember back in my day when I was doing my roofs, you know, and like they just get away with murder. And then they do their final exams, and then they come to EOS, you know what I mean, which is this island in Greece, you know, and you get to look after them for a week, which is fun.
It's a very funny but very, very stressful week.
So specifically, just to name it, because I want to specifically say, at the beginning it sounds like you were doing like a number of different venues. I know you were doing Ayia Napa for one point as well, and a few other, but it pretty much became then EOS in Greece, this island, which is where we met. Actually, in 2014, that was my first year. And I remember before I went to this island called EOS, or I had been there like years before as a young Irish teenager, just drinking supermarket vodka. And, you know, I went back to play music, and that was my journey. I had been playing music in Paris, and then I was like, oh, well, I've got this opportunity to go away for the summer. What do I want to do? I sent some messages, and I ended up going to play in this restaurant in EOS called Harmony, which is a beautiful location. And so I remember before I went to EOS, I was getting hyped and like getting like excited for it. And I watched this Life is a Beach Party after movie from the Swedish Midsummer Party
Yes.
in EOS, which is like a...
That was the first movie we did. Yeah.
That was the one. Okay, yeah. And it was that was when you were saying. It was like this really epic, particularly at the time for like 2013 or whatever it was. It was like a very epic produced, like it just looks like, you know, if you're a young person, that's the party you want to be in, you know? And it's just like, oh.
I actually had tears in my eyes when the editor sent me the first finished draft. And I remember it was 4 a.m. I was in my little bed in Norway and I was with the headphones and I was watching on my screen. I'm like, I've never seen a video like this before.
Yeah.
And I actually had tears in my eyes and I thought, oh, this is going to be something. And yeah, people loved it.
Yeah. And there's like thinking back to watching that video for the first time, there's an excitement that's rise that maybe still kind of exists, maybe not in the same way, but like watching something that touches really deeply in terms of like where one is at in life at that point. So in that point, like I was seeking, you know, connection, party, explosion of energy, just like let's fucking go.
Yes.
You know, so like that really summed up that feeling of like everything that version of me wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd say for many people the same. That's why it works.
Yes.
So yeah, and you can probably still go on YouTube and watch that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
2014 Swedish Midsummer Life is a Beach Party.
Yeah. I think 13 maybe.
2013, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2014, I went out and that's where we met for the first time.
Yeah.
And
we were two very different people back then.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, where were you at that time? Like what was happening for you? Where were you at in your...
Yeah, I lived in Norway, just somehow...
I think I thought you were Swedish the first time I met you.
Yeah, everybody did. No, I was really just working some jobs in Norway to finance building the company and having fun. Like, it was really just making ends meet, really, for the first couple of years with the company.
Yeah. And personally, though, where were you internally at that? Like, what was driving you? What was the fears? What was the desires?
Fears, good question. I didn't think about that in that way back then.
Too much vodka.
Yeah, and was just having fun, but definitely this feeling of being the center of attention suddenly. Just growing up, I was always the smallest amongst my friends, had glasses, and my friends were really good-looking dudes. Yeah. So I had always this thing that I'm not in the center of attention, not good enough, feeling insignificant. And suddenly there I was with this video and everybody recognized me and wow, I was like on this hype train. And just really compensating for a lot of things that were missing on the inside. But still, I think it was important that I had this time because it gave me also the confidence that I can do more and helped me to go that journey of self-development as well. So,
totally. I remember in those first probably 3 years, because I think 2014, 15, and 16 were the three like summers I was also in EOS originally, where I was partying a lot every night, like just really going for it, and also then traveling in between, going to Thailand and playing music and St. Anton in Austria as well, like the ski resorts. And and I remember thinking at that time, like we had a few interactions. I remember thinking like, for sure, you're someone who like enjoys picking up girls and like just being in the party lifestyle. And I don't think we really resonated at that time. There was like, I think maybe we did one event, or we had the one event in Ireland, and then there was a few things in EOS we kind of collaborated on.
Yeah, here and there.
Yeah, here and there, but there wasn't like a deep like, fuck yeah.
We were focused on other things.
Sure.
Female acquaintances were more interesting at the time.
Sure, totally. And I think that's a great actually exploration, because there's many people I meet who, in my mind, have never are consistently chasing the next Saturday night, because the allure of the pull, as we call it, or like the desire to go out and to pick up. And this can be guys and girls. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but the chasing that like one night, or the high of connecting with someone new, And I think a lot of people never actually have the opportunity to really allow that to play out. Because it's like a shadow and it's like a deep desire. And I believe it comes from a place of, I feel in some way unfulfilled or unworthy or not enough or empty inside.
Yeah.
And if I just get with this person or sleep with this amount of people, then I will feel enough, because look at those guys doing it. They're great. So I must have that now.
Yeah.
And it's almost like creating that belief that we then chase. Tell me a little bit, have you experienced that?
Yeah. And again, there was a time where I really enjoyed it, but as I got older, I started to realize, hey, this is actually, it's not fulfilling. And I think it's because the desires that are really driven by the ego, they are not sustaining. They're like, you need to feed it the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, even if I liked a girl back then and we had a great evening, and then she wouldn't text me back for like 3-4 hours the next day, I already started to wonder, well, had something changed? Does she still? So I needed this daily validation again and again and again, which was everything just from the outside. There was nothing inside of me that I was like, yeah, I'm actually good the way I am. Like, I don't always need this from the outside. But I really felt, I remember at one time I was thinking, it's like a drug. Like, I need constantly, and in my brain I was thinking, what are you thinking about? Like, what should have changed since yesterday?
Yeah.
So it wasn't rational at all.
Yes.
But like all this stuff on the inside, I was so insecure and shaky that, I needed that constantly. And so EOS was perfect, because new tourists every day, you meet people every day, and you get validation.
Sure, and it's, look, at the end of the day, it's a fair transaction. There's nothing shady about it, because a lot of people go there to have that experience.
Yeah.
So it's like fulfilling both needs, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I really recognize that as well. Like, for me, I was, I would say, quite a late bloomer. I was very introverted and kind of got bullied when I was a teenager or earlier in my teens. So I think my first girlfriend was 19. So I felt quite late to the party, and like I'd missed out on a lot of stuff. So, you know, that environment was great for me as an opportunity to kind of make up for lost time. Yeah, exactly. Particularly as like a musician there. And so what I found was like actually chasing that external validation. The more I went for that, the emptier I felt. And there was one moment I remember, like in 2016, I think, just walking home after a night, just feeling. It happened a number of times, but specifically this one night, like the sun was rising, and I just hated myself. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? This is so shallow and hollow. And this was after getting to a place where on paper I should have been so happy, based on what my younger self would have thought would be amazing. Where you're, you know, being in this party place, you're playing in the music on the stage, you're getting to sleep with women. Like, what are you complaining about? And it's like, I feel like a piece of shit. So hence the dark night of the soul, which I think in different ways we both kind of had a similar-ish experience, or an opening of a door. Mine was through having like a health crisis, and you know, going down the route of fasting and detox, and finding, you know, about a bit more like law of attraction and Joe Dispenza, and then spirituality, and opening into those words. What was your experience like, if you would call it like the dark night, or the opening of a door to something different, a different way of life?
I think it came a little bit later for me than it did for you. I kept doing this for longer.
Sure.
But I think it was, I got a very unexpected job offer after a season in Greece, because basically all I had to do was being in EOS for 3 months, and the rest of the year was some online work, but really not that much.
Yeah.
And then I got a really amazing job offer out of nowhere for a gambling company to basically be head of business development for Eastern Europe, and moved to Malta, moved to Bulgaria, got great salary. It was really too good to be true. But then there were some things that were not moving forward, because there was legal issues with licensing for the company. And I started to, even though we got paid well, and even though I had lived a great life, I suddenly started to feel like empty. I felt like I know now, because I didn't have a purpose, and I didn't really. I started to just think about more and more about this. Hey, I want to do something of value.
Yes.
And that started to emerge then, and then I was like, I can't continue like this, because even though nothing bad had happened to me, the opposite, everything was great, but I didn't feel happy, and I was like, okay, something needs to change, and then one guy that I haven't talked to for years sent me a documentary about this juice in the jungle of Peru. So ayahuasca. And I was watching it and I was like, no way, this is way too crazy for me. Interesting, but way too crazy for me. Growing up in Austria, like everything that has to do was anything else than alcohol was like, no, stay away, very far away.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but then 2 days later I was sitting on a plane and sitting next to some guy, starting to talk to him, and he tells me he just did ayahuasca in Peru. I was like, what the hell, never heard about it before, and now this. He told me about his experience, was very intriguing. Came home, a couple of days later, saw some video on Facebook from somebody. And that's when I kind of got, okay, maybe this is interesting for me after all. Super scared. I think I never researched anything that much in my life because I'm not a very detail-oriented person.
Sure.
So for 2 months, every day I was reading, watching videos, even contacting people who made reviews for a retreat in the jungle, talking to them, hey, was it safe? Was it okay?
Yeah.
And at some stage, I built up the trust. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this.
So when was this? What year?
What year? That was 2017.
Yeah. Early 2017, if I remember correctly. Was it? Or spring?
Yes, February.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went to Peru by myself. And yeah, this was a very extreme experience for me.
Sure.
Before I had planned, hey, I did so much research, I have travel agency background, surely there's other people who want all this information, why don't I make a business out of this? I make a website, I help people get safely to Peru, to a safe place, and after I did ayahuasca, I was like, no way in hell I'm going to be responsible telling somebody to do this. Because it was way too crazy. Like, it was a great experience for me, don't get me wrong. I'm very glad that I did it. It changed so many things for me, but it was just a very, very powerful and humbling experience, and anybody who does this needs to decide this for themselves. So, long story short, I went through places of darkness and fear there in the second ceremony that I didn't know were possible. But then on the third ceremony, it kind of gave me answers, and I just shoved all the deepest fears, conditionings, anything that I didn't want to look at or didn't even know was there. It took it out and shoved it in my face, and I had no way to not look.
Yeah.
So it was terrifying, but everything changed from then on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned before about the purpose piece, because I think it's easy to get lost in the moment of the party environment and people and excitement and dopamine and sexual energy and alcohol, all those things. And I think when the noise dies down and things get quiet, that's when we really see what's there.
Yeah.
And then when you go and do a retreat like that, you go to the jungle and you take some jungle juice, as you call it, and turn up the volume on those inner voices. That's when we really get to see what's happening. So like my take on it is, and again, I'm guilty of this as well, is like, as a way of suppressing and avoiding all the deeper stuff, it's like we get to, go to these environments and live the endless summer and, never grow up, as the Peter Pan analogy goes. But ultimately, it's for not always, but for some people, that moment comes where like you've had one drink too many and one, sexual partner too many, and it's just like, okay, what else is there? And yeah, I think definitely the going to Peru and going to the jungle is would be one way to like fast track your way to an experience and a breakthrough. Although at the same time, it can be a very confronting one, and sometimes too confronting for many people.
I say that it's not the only way. It's just for me in this moment, it helped me a lot. But surely there's other ways as well. It was just for me going from being very skeptical about it to seeing how these indigenous people who live in tune with nature, who treat each other well, who seem very healthy and happy, and they look at it as medicine. They say the jungle provides everything we need to be healthy. And I looked at them as an example. I said, who am I to judge that they're doing something wrong? How can I call this a drug, as when for them this is part of their culture, and they are doing pretty good, I would say. How they treat each other, how they live. And I can learn something from that. I don't want to live like this. I also like the Western world and the things that come with it.
Yeah.
But just to take a piece from there and include it into my life was very beneficial for me. But also it doesn't work that you just go there and think all your problems are fixed. It's really just an eye-opener to what's possible.
Yeah.
But then I just continued working on myself.
Sure. And that's the key, because, you know, going and doing plant medicine, like if you're someone who's experimented with that, you know, you probably have an idea, but even if you haven't, like, it's pretty much the experience is like you're strapped into the roller coaster and you go.
Yeah.
It's like there's this bullet train. It's like an Aerosmith roller coaster at Disneyland Paris, and you sit in it, and it goes from like 0 to 100 in like, you know, 0.1 of a second or whatever it is, and it's just like walk this way playing in your ears, right? And it's just like this experience of just been like full speed into like this loop to loop, as it would be. And you know, I find that there's not much yield with the old plant medicine. It's like you're straight in, and whether you like it or not. And for a lot of people, like I said, it can be too much. It can be jarring, you know. And then the other piece you mentioned is the integration, which is like what you said. Like it opens the door, it shows you things, but what you choose to do with that then is the next step, which is another mistake a lot of people make, which is either they go and they get addicted and they believe that this is the answer. They need to go and do 50 ceremonies, just one more ceremony, or they go and do it and then they just have some insights, but then go back home and fall straight back into all the old patterns and don't do anything to change or adapt. So how did you start to integrate that into your life and do things a little differently? What changed?
I was very conscious about, because they did a great job at that retreat to tell us how important the integration is.
Yeah.
So actually, that's when I went to Ukraine. I had a friend there, and I didn't even go to the capital, to Kiev. I actually looked which other city is there that nobody has ever heard about, but that's big enough for me to have some kind of, you know, environment. So I went to the city of Kharkiv in the east of Ukraine. And I thought I do that now because I have a few months to prepare for the summer, for EOS. I have a lot of work to do. And I will seclude myself from my friend circle, which is always connected with party. And I just focus on me and this completely new experience in a place where I didn't even know where to start when I go to the supermarket. In a foreign language, different products, everything new.
Norway all over again.
Yeah, in a
mindset.
pimped version. Yeah. So that was really, and it was the first time I started to introduce a morning routine and lived a life based on taking positive action every day rather than chasing pleasure every day or weekend. And I found that really enjoyable. Until this day today, when I think back to those 3 months that I spent there, not doing much really, very positive affirmation feeling about this time. And so I included some routines. And then really the big change was when I came to EOS, because I knew there was 2 things I remember from this summer. First of all, I was able to stay in shape because I was much more disciplined with my diet, because I just knew drinking every day is not going to serve me, even though there was this urge. It's very easy, but I was for the first time able to say no because I could see the bigger picture. And also for the first time I was able to separate my emotions much better from the problem. So if there was something that I didn't like or something bad happened, I was able to stay in my calm much more, thinking back to the jungle when I had this bad trip, and I was like, this was bad. It's okay. Like, we find a solution here. So it was just
got a new measuring stick to work with.
So I was able to deal with challenges and problems much better. I lived more healthy. I was more disciplined. And these were really some big steps for me that I wasn't able to do at all before.
I remember then, so that 2017 was the first summer that I was going also to EOS and not drinking and celibate and, you know, eating fruit only, you know, and like this intense. And I remember that was the time when I felt quite isolated in that experience, like still in this party environment, but just disconnected, and part of me enjoying it still and confused, and the other part not really wanting to be there and wanted to go fucking sit by the ocean and meditate kind of thing. I remember we would go for some dinners and kind of go to like far away on the other side of the island and have these talks about like, oh, what's this? And, you know, and then like later at night be in the bars and kind of see each other and go, oh, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult to separate from this, like completely.
Yeah.
Even after that, like there was then year after year, I realized more and more, hey, this pleasure chasing alcohol party lifestyle is really not serving me anymore.
Yeah.
But now I lived a life of 10 years where all my friends, all my social interaction, everything was based around party and alcohol, and me being the one driving it as well.
Yes.
People were relying on me. Oh, that's René, that's the party. So they were almost disappointed.
They're still looking at the old videos going, he's the guy.
Yeah, they were almost disappointed when I was the one that said, we don't need another round of shots, or I'm not going out tonight. They was like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
So it was very difficult for me because, again, this was talking about wanting to be loved
Keep
and accepted.
everyone happy, yeah.
That definitely didn't help because they wanted the old René to fulfill his role.
Yeah.
And I just got more and more uncomfortable with that.
Well, it's almost like a new level of matrix because, you know, when you're in Austria, people expect you to be the banker and play on the football team and keep everyone happy there.
Yeah.
And then you have the excuse to get out. So it's almost like creating a new web of like keeping you held in that role. And like we've witnessed as well some people that like do really take that on as their identity. Like I am the party person. That's who I am. And without that, they're nothing. So that can lead people to, in order to stay like in integrity and with their self-created identity and how others see them, to drive themselves into very negative mental and physical health situations, which is quite challenging. But sometimes we need to go on this journey and, you know, taste the bottom of the barrel, you know?
Yeah. And actually you were there, the very moment in my life where really everything changed. It was this winter when we spent time in Koh Tao in Thailand.
Yes.
And this was the worst week of my life where I pretty much believe that's what it feels like to be depressed for that week.
Yeah.
I wasn't hungry. I was constantly feeling horrible.
So what happened?
It was a combination of things. And all my fears came together at once and met, and I needed to deal with them. So
this was January or February 2018, I think.
No, this was actually...
Because 2017 summer would have been in EOS that first time, and then it was beginning of 2018, because we were in India after that, weren't we?
Were we?
Yeah.
I think
it was, or maybe 2019, beginning 2019. I don't know, one of those times. It was either 2018 or 19 in like February or January.
I actually think it was 2020. It was the COVID year. We went to Bali after. Because there was the thing with the Dutch girl, Kimberly, and then right after I met Sasha the same year. That's how I remember it.
Okay.
Because that was the one thing that made it possible for me.
No, but we didn't go... No, India was different.
India was earlier.
India
that was
earlier.
when my aunt passed away. But I don't remember the year, but that was earlier.
But did we do Thailand and then India one year?
Yeah.
But that wasn't the year.
We met in Koh Tao several times.
Okay.
Yeah, so now we got it.
Too much fruit juice. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, I was in Koh Tao for a month.
In Thailand.
Thailand, beautiful island in Thailand, which is full of backpackers. Basically, every night there's a party, which would in the past have been, oh wow, so I go out and there's a possibility to meet new girls every night. And I didn't want that anymore. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to drink. And I was just like getting messages from friends, hey, when are we going to go meet for this party? And I suddenly was like, what am I doing? And my whole picture of my world broke down because I realized this René is dead.
Yeah.
This René that everybody loved and built this huge circle of friends from all around the world, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Like, it was suddenly this void that I didn't know what I'm going to do now with my life. Like, it was quite significant for me.
Yeah.
So I had this big need for human connection and to talk about this because I felt alone and scared. And you were there and you helped a lot. We talked a lot. But then there was a situation with the girl.
So there was a girl you were seeing at the time.
Yeah, there was a girl I was seeing at the time, really great girl. She was basically a copy of myself, traveling the world, very open-minded, no commitment.
And still a little earlier in the journey, so she was still looking to party.
And she loved to have a beer or a glass of wine almost every evening. And I got this aversion against that, and I kept nagging. I said, why do you have to drink this? Because I was on this journey of, I want to get away from this.
Yeah.
And she was like just representing
that part of you internally that was...
Yes. Yeah. And so, long story short, she sent me a message before Christmas suddenly saying when she was drunk, I'm starting to get a little bit attached. And I was like, whoa. No. And I started to pull back, waited a little longer with answering texts, even though we got along great, really. But I just couldn't handle the thought of the commitment.
Yes.
And then as I pulled back, slowly, she also pulled back. And we were supposed to meet in Koh Tao. And just when I was in this time of my whole world is breaking down, I was so looking forward for her to come in and give me some happiness and validation and just talk it through because we had such a good connection. But because of my behavior, she suddenly didn't want to come anymore. Like the day before she said, I'm staying in Koh Samui, I'm not coming to see you. And I don't want to talk for a few days. Which was the worst for me. I wanted to talk so badly and explain myself, and at the same time it was a rejection.
Yeah.
Am I not good enough? All these old fears came back, ego as a guy, because I really showed my true self to her because we talked so much. And I thought, well, there's all these other girls, and I didn't give them so much of me. And her, I gave so much of myself, and yet it's not good enough.
Yes.
And she doesn't want me. This was like the highest form of rejection in the worst possible moment.
Yeah.
So this combination made me really crumble. And luckily, because ayahuasca and some self-development prior, I looked at it as, okay, we can learn something here. And rather than complaining and feeling sorry for myself, I really sat down and went deep inside myself and said, we need to get out of this. René, I talked to myself. I need to get out of this, and there's nobody who can help me other than me. Yes, I was talking to you, and it did help to a degree, but I needed to come to
find
peace
it in yourself
with myself. And this, luckily, I had realized that already. And because of that, I think I was able to get out of it rather quick after a week, because in this week, every single morning I woke up, I felt okay. After 2-3 minutes, this feeling was back.
Yeah.
And was like a loop. And I could imagine that people who don't have the support or these tools or don't think self-development or self-responsibility is available, they would be stuck in this loop. And that's when you get depressed and maybe go onto medication. And that's the loop. So I'm really grateful also to you for being there and also to myself for not giving up and just say, hey, we got
choosing to find empowerment instead of falling into collapse. Yeah, sure.
And I learned a lot because of it. And what I learned was the biggest revelation for me was no matter what woman would have come to my life at this moment, I would have found a way to push her away.
Yes.
Because I wasn't ready for the commitment because of different kind of fears and conditioning I had inside myself.
Yeah.
And then what happened 3 months later, I met my now fiance.
Aha.
And I would have pushed her away as well.
Yes.
If this hadn't happened.
Yes.
So, yeah. And this is why now I'm very big on the opinion of suffering is so important in our life. That looking back, the worst moments of my life has at the same time been the most beneficial, where I learned the most. So right now, if something bad happens, I might swear for a second, but the second thought is, okay, this is going to teach me something. What is it? Come at me.
There's a quote from, I think, Carl Jung, and it's a tree that wants to grow to heaven must first reach its roots down to hell. Kind of paraphrase, but that idea of like, we need to have that foundation to know how low the basement goes.
Yes.
So jumping forward a little bit before we return, like how would we look through at that situation, what you went through the lens of, let's say, breath work now? Because we're currently in this training. We're here in Bali, and we're 1 month into this breathwork training for practitioner. I'm like a support on it. You're in there, and it's like a super epic experience, like a 400-hour training where there's like deep clearing and personal development work, as well as learning to guide others into process and in their journey. So what have you learned in the last month about the nervous system and the body and how we process emotions that you could like look back on that situation now and apply? Like where you were at that time in Thailand?
That's a interesting question.
Better way of phrasing that was, if you met someone now that was in that exact same emotional state, how would you help them out of it?
With breathwork.
Totally, yeah. But how would breathwork help that?
It helps in so many ways. It's there's so many things that it did for me in the last 3 months. It's just, first of all, it regulates the nervous system. So actually on a deep physical level, it helps just to release emotions and to get closure, a different kind of closure on traumatic or difficult events, where you go in the looped breath, and you're just there and you're able to look at situations without this attachment, and you can go through the experience again and find closure for yourself. Which, like if we have an accident or something, this is something that's stuck emotionally in our system, and breathwork can just release that. And of course, from this experience, I have much better, and I have many experiences like this now. So meeting somebody who has similar issues, you can relate much more. You can understand what they're thinking. You can go there with them and guide them out. And I think with breathwork and the life experience and from coaching, this is like such a powerful combination, because it just opens people up more.
To see a different way. And even for me, there was a couple new layers in the last 3 months that I thought, I'm already quite self-helped. I know myself really well. But there's always more. Well, the way I would describe that, like based on what you were saying, through the lens of like, so the way I like to describe it, like as our human experience, like you're sitting in Thailand, you're on this beautiful beachy island, there's so many things you can do, and yet you're basically feeling depressed. Okay, so that doesn't really make sense to me.
No.
On it, like to the logical mind.
To nobody.
Yeah, totally. So it's like, okay, well, what's happening? And it's obviously an internal process. So what's happening inside? Let's like go in there and look at it, like dissect it. The way I would say it is that yes, there's going to be like this realization of like, oh, this life isn't serving me. But like maybe you're drinking a coconut and then you realize you don't like coconuts, and then you just don't order one tomorrow, and then fine, But realizing that like that life isn't serving is actually a stacking of so many like of the identity and the ego pieces in that life, and then the feeling of the dissonance between being in that situation and not wanting to be in that situation, but wanting the connection, but not wanting to connect with those people, and not knowing another way, and just being lost, and that can create a downward spiral. And then the thing with the woman specifically, like I would say like she's representing in that moment like a feminine figure, like a mother, nearly in some way. You look for someone who you have that deep connection, who accepts you for who you are. And to be rejected by that woman that you've projected onto is like being rejected by your own mother, which for a young child, which will assume that's the kind of part that's active at that time, is very fucking challenging. That's like you die. If your mother rejects you as a young child, like you're fucked. So imagine from that standpoint, if you're like dropping back into like, imagining we've got like different versions of ourselves, like our most up-to-date iOS is like 16.4.8 or whatever it is. And then we've also got older versions of ourselves that are like, can be running in the background, like younger parts that maybe had an experience or an emotion or a feeling that they never got to fully complete. Like that one time that your dad left you at the supermarket. And now we could sit here going, oh yeah, like he came back after 20 minutes. It was no big deal. But in that moment, you're like, the child is feeling, I'm going to die. I've been abandoned, and how insignificant must I be if you just forgot about me? I'm not worthy. And how we take that story and we take the information that's coming to us through our lives and through our life experience and apply it to it. Oh, my girlfriend left me. Yeah, because I'm not worthy. See, and we get to be right. So in that situation with this girl, it's like, as you said, you opened up and showed more of yourself. It would be easier if she was just a random, oh yeah, whatever, could write it off easy, but it's the core wound, which is I'm being rejected and not loved for who I am.
Yeah.
And that makes sense why you would drop into a depressed state, because it's like the body wants to shut down. It's like, we're going to die.
And the reason I know this was such a great example in real life that proves these childhood wounds and conditioning do exist, because there's always some people who would say spiritual or my childhood has nothing to do with
I had a great childhood, you know?
Yeah. But it just showed, because even, especially afterwards, rationally, you might remember 2 weeks before or 3 weeks before she came, I said, I got to tell her one more time, I'm not in love with her, I don't want a relationship. So in the clear and sober mind, I knew I wasn't in love with this person.
Yeah.
But the pain I felt by her rejection was like as if she was the person I have loved the most my entire life. So it didn't make sense. So I knew it must have come from me and my personal internal problems that were unsolved. It didn't have to do with her. She was just representing that in that moment.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, it's like if 2 + 2 is equaling 7 and something's not adding up, it's like, all right, what else is going on here? There's something else at play.
Yeah.
So like, if we were to go back into that situation now, what I would say is like the looping of like you waking up and then dropping into that feeling and being almost like stuck in it. The analogy I would like to think of, it's like a shadow monster in a pit pulling you down into the pit.
Yeah.
And it's like, as soon as you realize that actually this is not real, it's just the fucking shadow monster pulling me in, you get to kick him off and step out, you know? But the problem is that if we don't realize and we don't catch ourselves, then he pulls you back in. So, connected breathwork, as we've been discovering, is one of the most powerful modalities for realizing you're in a hole and there's a shadow guy pulling you down. You get to just kick him off and find yourself again. And I really not just like know cognitively, oh yeah, I shouldn't be feeling that, but like to really let go of the feeling that it gets to be completed. It's like, it's kind of like there's this tab and open in the background that's draining all the battery, and we just get to close it off and it gets to go away. Yeah. And so it's not about improving your mindset. It's not about, doing even more daily practices to avoid it. It's about actually getting rid of it and closing it off.
Yeah.
And for me as well, that's like breathwork has been the most efficient practice for doing that.
Yeah.
For fully just like deleting those programs off the hard drive.
There's no way this is not going to be mainstream in a few years. Once people realize what it can do, and the funny thing is, it's breathing, right? So people think it can't be that powerful. It's too obvious. We all breathe.
I'm breathing all my life, and I never had that,
And it would be too easy. It's for free. We can do that ourselves. The breathing, right? So people just we don't think that that's a possibility, that it can change so much. But actually, the science is there. Like there's actual science that shows that it affects everything. And it's right there, yet people just are not aware. Totally. As I wasn't. I was only aware because you kind of opened my eyes to it.
And what was it about, let's say, because, we were talking, basically what happened was, we were in Thailand, in Koh Tao, and then we came to Bali.
Yeah.
And that was in the end of January, beginning of February 2020. So there was that moment, I remember, when we went to this night out. I was playing, I think, a show. And we got back and we'd been watching the news for some days. And then we realized, actually, shit, this COVID thing is actually going to happen.
And you were like, really take it serious.
Yeah, we were like laughing about it and like, oh, conspiracy, and whatever. And then, you were like, shit, I'm going to jump on a flight tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I remember I was in a swimming pool with our friend Luke, and I just saw NBA season canceled. And I was like, what? Like, this was for me, okay, this is going to affect our lives.
Yeah.
Because that was big.
That's the tipping point, yeah.
And we had an apartment project in Kiev. And Ukraine, like, it's not the banking system and all of that. It's different. It's not Europe. It's not connected. So what happened was that there was one last payment to be done for this apartment. And most of it was already paid. And I needed to be there in person to go to the bank to do this. And that was like, I think, somewhere in the middle of April, or end of April. I was going to stay 1 more month.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't there to do that, I don't know what would have happened with the apartment.
Yeah.
And suddenly they said, Ukrainian border closes in 40 hours to all foreigners. So I'm like, I got to go right now. I called the travel agent. I said, I got to go. She's like, yeah, flight in 6 hours. packed my bags, and 2 hours before the border closed for foreigners in Ukraine,
And you go.
there I was. I entered, and all other foreigners left.
Yeah.
So it was like me and the Ukrainians.
Just rolling in, yeah. And so that kind of leads us to our next chapter, which is your life in Ukraine and what's happened since then.
Yeah.
Because obviously saying the word Ukraine nowadays is very different to before. People are like,
Yeah.
oh, where's that? Is it Russia? Is
Yes.
it near Russia? And now it's a very different story. So tell me
Yeah.
about, first of all, your personal experience of like spending these last years in Ukraine and calling it home.
Many people ask me, why Ukraine? Like, why did he even come up with this in the first place? And I think the biggest reason was that I've been traveling so much everywhere, and I wanted to really live somewhere where I can make my own experiences without being biased by hearing this from friends and that and that. It was just a different culture, different people, different language, different way of life, and I wanted to see how it feels to do that.
A blank slate.
Yeah, blank slate. And also I had a very good friend there, somebody I connected with, Vitali. And he introduced me to all of his friends. He's an architect, a bit in the art. I'm not really an artist or something, but he introduced me to interesting people. Yeah. I did Ukrainian Easter with them, like it's like Christmas for us.
Traditional,
yeah. Lots of food, all these kind of foods that I've never seen before. And just being part of that was super fun. That was how I started to love Ukraine.
Yeah. What year was that? That was
after the Easter stuff. That was like 2016, 17.
Aha, okay. So yeah, there was an affair over a few years. Yeah,
a few times I've been there, but I didn't live there.
Yeah.
So I started to live there really when COVID started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So came to Ukraine, took care of the thing with the apartment. And then it was lockdown, and then went on Tinder and saw this beautiful girl. Bit young for me, I thought, but it's lockdown, so I can't be alone all the time.
Yeah.
So, and we couldn't go anywhere. Everything was closed. No cafes, nothing. So the only thing we could do is cook together and watch movies. Mm-hmm. And usually, I would have been after like spending a day or two with a woman, I would say, all right, I got to do my stuff now. Like, I need my space. And this time it was different. I was like, you know what? You can stay if you want. I just felt this different connection. Mm-hmm. And COVID definitely helped in building this relationship, because otherwise it would have been easy for me to do my thing and go out again. Yeah. But we were actually forced to spend so much time together. Mm-hmm. And that built the foundation. But the other big thing was, for me, this was a great test for how my mindset has shifted. Mm-hmm. I got so many messages. Oh my God, COVID, what happens with your business, travel agency? Like, you might lose all the business. That's so unfair. I feel so sorry for you. That's so unfair, or whatever. Mm-hmm. I didn't have one thought like that. I never thought, oh, why me? Or I was like, okay, if it doesn't work out, it's for a reason. I'll find a new way. I wasn't negative about it, which was motivating me somehow. That I was, able to look at it that way. But then I thought, okay, I do have to think about alternatives, because who knows how long this is going to go on? Who knows what's going to happen with the travel industry? Mm-hmm. I come back to the women, but in a different way. Yeah. Because of me feeling so insignificant next to my friends as a young guy, it also pushed me to obtain some skills, and that was understanding women better. I think in general, people, because I have this big fear of not being accepted and misunderstood, I always wanted to analyze people, understand them so well, so that I can act in a way that they will love and accept me, which worked. I had so many friends from all over the world, and I did well with women, even though I'm not the best looking guy. So, now there is a time in life when you get older, these things are no longer serving you anymore if you act out of fear. But back then, it was certainly good for something. Purpose, when I was 16 years old, it was already that all the other guys, they came to me with their phone and said, René, so I met this girl, so this is the situation. So what would you write? So I was like ghost writing for them. I was like sending texts to all the girls, and they were all like, "Oh, you're so good at this. You should do this for a living." And I was like, "Haha, no." It was like not on my radar. But then this intensified, traveling obviously through all the different countries, different cultures, just starting to really connect behaviors. And I was just good at that. And then in Ukraine, it's a very particular mentality. So it was easy for me to create some kind of red thread. I saw like patterns of what 95% of women there expect and want from a man in order to be content and happy.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I saw all the expats and my friends coming in, not understanding what they want, making
the Western mindset.
Yeah, the Western mindset, and applying the Western dating mindset to Ukrainian women, which led to, a lot of unfortunate situations, and just like it didn't work.
What would be 3 of the biggest mistakes that, like, let's say Western guys or men from a Western mindset would make with a more traditional, feminine, or, Soviet Eastern European woman in terms of dating and relationships?
First of all, they don't understand that you're on an interrogation from the first moment. So are you a real man, as what they perceive a real man to be? So do you know what it takes, how to treat a woman? And that starts from the first moment in the first date by how do you get to the date? Just simply ordering her a taxi, for example, or opening the door, like these typical gentleman things that are not so significant in the West anymore. Or many guys even connected, oh, why should I pay for the taxi? It's, am I not good enough without the money? Like if she just wants me for my money, then I don't want her, but it's not about the money.
And also the women might say, well, I want to pay for taxi because I'm a strong woman and I look after myself.
Yeah, same. Even in Norway, if I would have opened the door for a girl or helped her out of the jacket, she would kind of say, oh, gentleman or what? Like almost making fun of it.
Yeah.
So many guys are not used to doing these things, but if you don't do that in Ukraine, you've already lost.
Yes.
Right. So, and it's a lot about energy and just portraying this strong man, because they want to feel safe and protected in good and in bad times. They look at you, oh, how are you going to be in 5 or 10 years if you're the father of my children? And the guy doesn't think like that. It's just the first date. Let's see how we go.
Yeah, I'm just here to have fun. I'm in the flow. You know?
Yeah. So I had one friend who came, who went on a date with a girl. He's from Australia, and he had a lot of. That's the other thing, being too rational. It's not good to be too rational. Yeah. So he went on a date, they had a coffee, and it was like cheap. It was 2 coffees, and he had lots of coins, and he wanted to get rid of the coins. So he started like to count the coins as he was paying, and then he was $1 short or something. And he said to her, hey, do you have $1? She got completely pissed off. He didn't understand why. It's just $1, but it wasn't about... It is just an indicator.
The energetics of it, yeah.
Yeah, for everything. It's about this energy that the man just...
takes care.
And got it, and makes a woman feel just like a woman. Just, I got you, I take care of you.
So that's 1. 2 more mistakes that guys make in dating and relationships.
2 more mistakes.
In Eastern Europe.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about which ones are ones that people can relate to the most. There's one that guys seem to think that if they are always super nice and say yes to everything, that this is actually going to serve them. So what often happens is you come to Ukraine, and some people are not going to like this, but it's just the truth. If you as a Western guy come to Ukraine and you are mature and you have a decent job, it doesn't really matter how good you look or not, your mate value just skyrockets right away. Because the looks itself, it doesn't really matter too much if you understand the culture and the mentality. And
you have an ability to provide.
Yeah. So then what happens is many guys come to the country, and even if they go on Tinder, and suddenly they get the opportunity to go on dates with women rather quickly or almost every day, that wouldn't probably even look at them back home.
Yeah.
So then they think, oh my God, this is too good to be true. I want to make this work. So in the moment, when they sit on the date, they already made the decision in the head. Yes, I want this. And then they ignore all the red flags.
Yeah.
They say yes to everything. Oh, I love to go to the theater and I like to go hiking. And actually he doesn't like it, but he's like, oh yeah, me too.
Because he meets like a 10 out of 10 and he's just like, yeah.
So, and then, but obviously this is going to come to the surface later.
Yeah, giving your power away.
Yeah, and you portray somebody you're not because of the beauty of the woman, and then later the real you comes out, and then that leads to problems, but then people are already attached in love, whatever, and then it's very hard to get away. So I always say it's super important to know exactly what you want, what you don't want, your boundaries, stand up for yourself. Because also if you don't stand up for yourself, she will think, how can you stand up for me?
Yes.
So
totally.
sometimes even saying no to her is important because it shows her that what you're made of.
Where your edges are.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is where I am, where my boundaries, my lines are, you know?
Yeah.
Totally. Instead of just being like fluid and...
For sure. Yeah.
One more big mistake.
I think... I don't know if it's a mistake, but one thing I like to talk about is, because it's it's kind of a controversial topic these days with the role of the man-woman, toxic masculinity, and so on. I think guys don't understand that being a wife and a mother and being the support act, more or less, to the man, Ukrainian women, 95% of them are actually proud of this role.
Yes.
Rather than, oh, this is something you need to do.
Disempowering or...
Yeah, because in the West now often we are told this is, disempowering. It's not worthy. This is not a status that is, worth acquiring. But there, really, the mindset is completely different. They love to see their partner succeed, because when I had the podcast with a Ukrainian woman not long ago, she said she knows so many examples as to where the man was elevated to completely new heights after meeting a feminine woman who takes this supporting role, the nurturing, the taking weight off the guy's shoulder. So I always say, for somebody who is quite driven, entrepreneurs or somebody with a good job, it's the perfect type of relationship, because this woman understands you instinctively, looks at you and says, okay, where are the things that I can support him with? And then really lifts you up, because everything's so much lighter. It's the same in business. If you're going to take somebody in, you're not going to take somebody in who has the same qualities as you. You're going to take somebody who is good at the things you're not good at. Yeah,
you do sales and marketing, they do accounting and legal, you know? You don't try to do everything yourself.
Yeah, that's really what the polarity does, and that's what I learned in my relationship as well, that she makes me better. And that's ultimately better for the both of us. So, yeah.
That's really powerful. And like now you've been doing the, like, basically supporting men, like Western men that want to meet Eastern European women and create a polarized traditional style of relationship.
Yeah.
And it's starting out as just dating, but obviously it develops into like relationship and even like big success stories. So tell us about one or two of them.
Yeah, so I quickly realized I didn't want to be connected with... There's many like pickup dating coaches who came to Kiev telling guys how to talk to girls on the street, how to get laid. But yeah, I didn't really want to go down that route.
And also the wedding agencies that like you can buy a wife and stuff. This is crazy.
Yeah, so I knew, that's the thing. I knew that I can really help the guys, all the expats in Kiev and stuff, who really wanted this connection. And the women also are interested in foreigners. It's interesting for them. But just there were too many misunderstandings all the time. So I knew I could help people. But again, my personality, don't want to be misunderstood.
Sure.
I was afraid people might think, oh, this has to do with sex tourism, buying girls, or like stuff like this. Yeah. And this was really a big barrier for me. So what I did was I met like 5 of my Ukrainian female friends, and I explained to them what I intend to do with guys and what I'm intending to teach them. And they all said, this is amazing. Please introduce me to these guys. And they also said, Ukrainian guys wouldn't try to better themselves as a partner. It's not,
Yeah.
So they were like, wow, this is really great. And then I thought, well, if the women themselves from this country think it's great, then I don't have anything to fear. And this is, I can, with my peace of mind, I can do this. I mean, I knew that I was going to try and do a good thing. On the one hand, help men to understand the women better, be better partners. On the other hand, help them becoming more confident in their masculine role. Because if you, as a man, are more content in who you are, it's so much easier for you to be a good partner. And that's why I don't buy into the toxic masculinity thing at all. I mean, there are some people, yes, that hiding masculinity behind being overly aggressive and controlling and jealous.
Yeah, but it's still boy psychology. It's still operating as a child in an adult body.
Yes. So
I'm going to have all my toys and that kind of thing.
Yeah. But only really once you start to be confident in who you are, understanding maybe what your challenges were, working on them, and essentially being happier with yourself, only then you can be a really good partner. And then you can be a really good friend and a business partner, because you're not going to project everything you don't like onto yourself. And you're just able to hear, and you're like, okay, cool, you can have a conversation and you can work out things together in a very calm manner rather than just losing it.
You're responding to life instead of reacting.
Yes.
Like I for me, I think particularly as like a man, one of the biggest breakthroughs is this idea of like gaining an understanding of my inner world. So not just that I can like suppress and control all my emotions like there's something to be feared, but actually learning to work with them and where are my blind spots, where am I strong and weak, so that I can own my shit. And so I can not get triggered by things outside, so that I can respond. Like if something like whether it's a woman being very emotional and having there's a fight or there's a situation happening in business or something happens in the street, being able to not lose my shit and actually respond to like moment to moment. All right, what's happening? Okay, what do I feel? What do I see? And being confident to move forward and act in that. And I think go on.
And I think the biggest story there was one guy really coming. He was like the lowest you can be in terms of self, belief, and he was a captain on a big ship. A good job, money, nice house at home, and he stayed for the summer. And when he came, like it was literally, he was afraid to cross the street by himself almost. Or he called me when I sent him to like one of these pool bars. He called me when he arrived and asked me where he can change his swim shorts. Like it was really crazy. And then on the other hand, he was a really tough guy. He was a captain on a big fishing ship. He was out on the rough sea. He had like his thumb cut off, and it was just like, I'm gonna keep working. Like so there was a lot of masculine in him, but also from his childhood. What I learned later, and. So I was really thinking, and he had really big trouble finding somebody at home in his country, and he basically had given up on that. And in these 2 months where we worked together in Kiev, I think 5 months later he was married. And
to an Eastern European woman.
To a woman from Ukraine. And they went back to his country, and just so many things changed in a quite short time, because there was just a few little things that needed to switch in his mindset, which we were able to do. And it's great,
And you mentioned before around the idea of like a polarized relationship. So like you kind of like, this is a topic that's becoming more and more like reviving now almost, as the pendulum swings from, the hyper and, the old style of relating, which is maybe there's some toxic elements to what we'd call a stage one relationship, where the man is like controlling and, maybe, strong and angry and not able to express emotion or overexpressive of anger. And then the woman can be more of the passive or submissive, manipulative, like in that traditional, like these are the shadows of the stage one original relationship, which would be like previous generations. And then the second stage is where, women become empowered and go and become CEOs and make a shit ton of money and like boss babe and kind of like basically take on like what a man would do. And that's a marker of like, in some ways worn as a badge of equality, Okay. Oh, I can do this, therefore we're equal.
Yeah.
And the man goes in the forest and does yoga and sings, dancing around a tree kind of thing, you know, finding the feminine side. And a lot of guys I come across, like particularly here in Bali, but also, you know, in the West as well, like would have gone and would have done the traditional stage one. I'm going to make the money and then I'm going to build a business and have that, and then I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they reach a certain point of like, oh, what if there's something more? And then exploring these other modalities. But just to give like a roadmap of what it can look like, both internally and in a relationship, like for a man, I feel there's like this stage where we reach this integrated, like stage 3. So it's the male and the female. So you can build a business and have those skills, but also be in touch with yourself and your emotions, and to be creative and to, have that balance, you know what I mean? And then for a woman, the stage 3 would be being able to go and make the money, but also to be in that wife and supporting role and in the feminine. And I think in a way, the Eastern European women have that unlocked. It's like all these women, like instead of like, they're like, I don't need no man, but they're still like grinding themselves for like a boss at their job. You know what I mean? Which is just a different kind of man, you know? So it's not actually beating the system. It's just like replacing it or changing it in some way and calling that like progress. So it's actually, I think the big hack is coming back to like, what is at our core. And of course, some people will naturally have a more masculine or feminine essence, depending on who they are. And it doesn't really matter if they're a man or a woman. It's like, what's their true nature?
An example that many Eastern European women tell me, like, obviously I talk to a lot of them. It's my job as well. So I always try to understand even better. And when it comes to work and money, like 20 years ago, they would probably think, no, I just want to be at home. Now, of course, they also want to, some of them have a career, want to be, create something. But they say, no matter what, if I have a man, my ideal scenario is I can follow my passion, not with the priority of making money with it.
Yes.
If I make money or not, or much or not, it doesn't matter. I shouldn't stress about the money. I want to trust that my man can take care of this so that I can blossom in my feminine and do all these other things for him. It's really they say it's an energetical thing. They just want to have this trust and they want to do something. It's important to have a passion, of course. Yes. It doesn't mean they should just be in the kitchen. No, I think we're above that point in time where, again, the masculine man wants that. Yeah. I think we want our woman to be happy, to be fulfilled. It's also something to admire. When I watch my fiance doing her pictures, her art, like, I love that. These are moments when I love her even more, seeing her in full expression. And
yeah, it's fascinating to, like, again, come back to this thing. And like, I even see it in Bali here as well, like some women that would have had a very successful business and built and made a lot of money and reached this point of just like, oh shit, I'm in like my mid to late 30s and I'm fucking not happy. And actually I want a family. And now they're like having kids and they're like stoked. They're just like, yes, you know, because it's like, it's in there. And like, there can be a case of trying to follow that because maybe that's what we should do or what, like, that's, as we said, progress or whatever. But it's coming back to these, you know, almost ancestral principles of like, it's integrating like that old wisdom of like the tribe and community and male and female, and knowing that they both have superpowers and they're not the same. Yeah. Okay. Like, they're not the same. They both have different strengths, while also bringing that to like a modern day scenario where we've got Tinder and fucking, you know, you can order stuff at the drop of a hat and all these kind of like modern amenities out there. So how can we integrate the two of them? Yeah. It's kind of like the balance. Yeah.
And I had a conversation with a woman from the UK, and she is also early 30s, and she said she starts to realize that she actually wants to be more feminine and wants to have more masculine men, even though she was taught that's wrong. But now, as she goes on her path of self-development and also has made money and stuff, she also realized that. And I think just the quality time that I have with my partner, because of not forcing her to do this career working as much as I do, is also something that is so valuable. Because with my ex in Norway, we were both working a lot, we were both stressed, evenings, okay, we came home, but then maybe I was tired, she was tired. Oh, you going to do the dishes today? No, I. It was like this constant, oh, but you did this. I don't know, it was like a competition.
Yeah.
And now it's just like this unconditional doing the best we can for each other in their own ways. And also just enjoying these simple moments. Like our society, we are so driven by goals. Like if I reach that, I have that. But what is the goal? The goal, you feel that for 5 minutes, 1 week, 1 month.
Or you get the Instagram photo and the likes, the dopamine
Yeah.
hit. But it's actually,
99% of life is when I come home and the hugs I get in the door, the thing we cook together, the movie we watch, the walk we take. Like these are things I can do on Monday, on any Wednesday. Not like, oh, this holiday that I'm looking forward to all the time. Like, it's great, these pleasurable, adventurous moments, they're part of our life. But if you have them all the time, it doesn't make you happy. So it's like really these simple things. And I feel with Eastern European women, they have an instinctive understanding and also no aversion towards understanding a man instinctively. Mm-hmm. They want that. And that's just something beautiful. When I had this conversation with the Ukrainian woman, she said, if I'm in a bad mood about something, about my emotions, I didn't like something about my day, and my guy, and he's really the guy I want him to be, he comes home and he had a really stressful day at work, I choose not to tell him about my little things that happened during the day, and I will support him because I understand he is doing big things, and if I tell him this now, he doesn't have the capacity to actually help me with my problem. So by me helping him, I know that he will be the man. I want him to be quicker, and he can also be good for me. So she said, I'm thinking a few steps ahead. I understand how men think and work, and it's much more important for a woman to understand a man than you for understand us. She said, you don't really need to understand us because we often don't understand ourselves. And she said, I think it's my role to see that, and then I will receive much more from him as well. So and this is just an example, and you don't need to agree with it, but it's like the general theory of not only thinking about oneself in any given moment and comparing, but just try to understand each other on a deeper level and then make decisions based on that. Yeah.
And then it becomes like, it's that honoring of each other's like role or gifts, and then there's like this natural symbiosis, interaction between the two parts. Yeah. It's really beautiful.
And it unlocks something in me as well. If she does all these supportive things for me, I value that so much that I want to go to the flower shop and bring her flowers. I want her to have this beautiful dinner with the view. You know, like all of these things maybe not that important to me, but I have the desire to give that to my partner when I see that there is a balance of give and take, just unconditional.
Yeah. It's epic. Got it dialed, man. So, in terms of moving forward now, future, what's in store? You know, obviously things in Kiev at the moment are a little rocky, so we don't have any relationship coaching going on in Kiev at the moment. You've been still working with some people online, here doing the breathwork training, and we've talked about maybe running events in Europe, retreats for German and also English audiences. What are you looking forward to? What's exciting for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting time in my life now because after living out of the suitcase for so long, I finally made myself a home in Kiev and thought, okay, I take an apartment. I sat down, I can actually leave my winter coat somewhere and it's still going to be there when I come back. So, and then obviously when the war started, I got kicked out of the situation again and start over. So I still have the travel agency in EOS, but I don't have to be actively have to be there anymore. So it's like little online management, which is great, but doesn't take up too much of my time. And then I was thinking, okay, I'm going to put my coaching online and offer services there, which I do. But really what became much bigger and occupying more of my future plans now is breathwork. And this is something I didn't think would happen 3 months ago. But but it just feels very much in integrity. I've just seen so many changes inside of me that it did for me: health, mindset, learning about myself, making my life easier, applying breathing techniques in daily situations that immediately give me benefits, like so much that I see. And also not only me, but watching the other people who are on the same journey, watching the clients coming in and their experiences. It's just such an overwhelmingly positive impact with something so natural and also great to combine with coaching. It's just, yeah, as I had...
mind and the body.
The mind and the body, and as I had fun for so many years and to some way also added to the experience of a young person's life. But now just the desire to actually build a community, to really help inspire people on a deeper level, to really give them tools to live a happier life, a more healthy life. Like, this is just what's... this is... Nothing else is more appealing to me right now. And so that's why I think breathwork really is the way forward. And yeah, as you said, the retreats in Europe this summer, I'm really excited about, even with the revelations of the last week.
Sure, yeah. It's been
happened quite unexpectedly, and seems like...
Yeah, just like to speak to that, like a very natural unfolding process with another business partner coming in. It's all very aligned. It's all very like great natural balancing in the roles of like what everyone's talents and skills are. And I think it's going to be really exciting. And it's almost like, you know, you setting off on your odyssey and returning to the mountains of Austria with the gift for the people, you know, for all these people who never heard about leaving Austria or trying anything new. It's like getting to go back to Austria or Germany or Switzerland or Norway or, you know, and go to these places and bring something that can really change someone's life quite quickly. So, you know, we see, like, because obviously in Bali, it's a little bit of a bubble here. It's it's like we get a lot of people come, and some of them are spiritual and some of them are just like on holiday. But, you know, if you were, you know, coming across someone back in Europe, okay, that's like maybe working in business, successful, has some money and been doing this for some years. And now they're kind of thinking, I want to try something different. Maybe I should try meditation, but I don't know if I can do that. You know, why could breathwork be good for someone like that? What might happen if they tried?
Interesting you mentioned meditation. This is actually the perfect example for my personal experience. I always looked at the people who are meditating on a regular basis and the benefits they talk about. And this was super appealing to me. And I was like, I want that too. But what I realized was, in order to have really these meditation benefits, you need to be very consistent. You need to do it for a longer period of time to really get into those states of consciousness that really relax you. I was not patient enough. I had my thoughts always drifting off. It didn't really work for me. And then as I had my first breathwork experience, 1.5 hours and boom, I just went straight into it. And I realized this is amazing, because if somebody's already super busy, working, has a lot going on, and then you tell them, okay, you got to meditate every morning for 15 minutes and maybe in 6 months you will be a different person. It's like people they don't believe in that. Or
it's a big risk. It's a big investment. You know?
Yeah, it's an investment where you don't know what's going on, and it's so much effort. And again, breathwork, it can fast track that, and it can give people just such a great initial experience in the start. And that doesn't necessarily actually show them the real power of it yet, but it does enough that they see, hey, actually, this is giving me something that I'm not used to. Be that releasing emotions, anger, cry. How many guys come in and say, I haven't cried for I don't know how long, and now I was bawling and it feels so good. Because in this space, it's safe, it's nobody's going to judge you for it. And we all have these emotions, right? And suddenly you can let them go. Or you just come in super stressed and you leave and you're like, I feel like newborn. I feel like a reset button has been pushed and I'm so light. This was what happened to me. And even that alone, if you are somebody who has a busy everyday life and it can do that for you, to reset you once a week or twice a week and be just, okay, I'm back with myself, clear mind. This is amazing. This is worth so much.
It's for me the most efficient thing I've found. It's like the fucking autobahn. You know, it's just like straight in, like to the good stuff. You know, because if we're like, for me, I still live a very active life and do a lot of things, and like there's a lot of balls juggling in the air. So it's like, for me, I was about like regulating my nervous system, so I was able to, you know, be with life and do all these different things while staying present enough to enjoy it, instead of being panicked and running around all the time and feeling stressed. What I didn't realize is that the stress, a lot of it was coming from me holding on to emotions, or also running, like we talked about, the programs. You know, these different programs that we're operating under. I need to be nice to everyone, or I need to have this level of success, or people won't like me, or all these programs and stories that we can have. What connected breathwork has allowed me to do is to like basically let go of those, to like remove them, because I feel it, I let it go, and then it just, like, life starts to change. It's very hard to describe like on a quantified level. You know, X, Y, Z, you do this, then you let go of that emotion, then it's a very, everyone is unique. Everyone has their own life experience and journey. Like no two people, no two nervous systems are the same. So each person, when they lie down, will have a totally different journey every time. However, we're naturally self-actualizing beings. We're moving towards vibrancy and health, and the body knows the way. It remembers the way. So we're just coming back to what is already like stored in our DNA, which is wellness and actualization, effectively.
Yeah. And one thing I love about it as well, I talk to you about this a lot, is that with breathwork, you can really reach people who are skeptical to the spiritual world, as I always have been.
Yes.
Because I was like, yeah, open to it, and I think it's interesting what else is possible, but I always had a decent level of skepticism, and I liked science, and I like to, before I believe something, to experience it on my own body. So I think this is where in our team I kind of come in, because I see what people might think. If there is some guy from a hometown, I'm already talking to them now, and I say, I know what you might be thinking. I was thinking the same, like, and just pick them up where they're at. And even if somebody is zero experience with any spiritual practices, this is science-based.
Yes.
Like, you can explain, even though the science is not widely known, but it is there. So I can show everybody the data, like and then it makes sense. Even Wim Hof, like people, this Dutch guy, the Iceman, who made all these Guinness Book World Records through the power of breath.
Yes.
It's a different technique. It's something, I mean, we could talk a long time about techniques, but it shows what you can actually do with your body and your mind. If you breathe properly.
Totally. So. Well, it's, you know, when we're getting up and walking around, we're living from our conscious minds, but with breath, like, we can consciously breathe and we can change our breath with our mind, or we can just, you know, allow, like, we're sitting here talking for the last hour and a bit, and we're breathing, but we haven't noticed it.
No.
You know, if we had to think about every breath, we'd probably forget and die, you know? So luckily it keeps going. But what that means is that if we can tap into the breath, it allows us over a period of time, usually just over an hour for a breathwork journey, to tap into our subconscious and start to see all the programs that are running in the background that we didn't realize, and start to close off those tabs, like we said. And this is where, like, you know, for you, like you were mentioning, you wanted to maybe do a travel agency to Peru to help people to the jungle, and you wouldn't do that. But I feel like this is something that's more accessible, that's safe, that's like we're working only with like someone's level of capacity where they're at. We're not throwing them on the Aerosmith roller coaster kind of thing. So I think for all those reasons, it's a really powerful thing that we now get to bring to the West, to share that with people and to explore this work.
And another thing that was super powerful for me, and I think it would be for many people, is, and that's why I like the idea of a retreat where you come for a couple of days and really tune in into all of that. And we'll also bring some other aspects in to how to improve health and daily practice. But the focus really is breathwork because it's that powerful. But the great thing about the retreat is that there will be a group of people who all come there for the purpose of trying something new or bettering themselves. And what I didn't know before until I experienced it was the power of sitting in a circle and talking about life with strangers in a very open way without getting any judgment. And suddenly, I remember my first circle. the first person started to talk, and right away started talking about some of their fears. And I didn't expect that, but you have a room of strangers listening to that and receive that, and maybe later come and talk to you about that, and also getting so many different perspectives of people and how they see lives and the struggles they have, and then being able to share yours and being heard. I don't know why, but this was so powerful, and I don't think that's something we do, especially men. Many of my clients are men. If you're in the pub and you start to talk about your fears or things that you struggle with in life, it's just not really...
Yeah, other people's insecurities will shut it down. It's
Yes.
like we're all like, imagine this like line up the top. We can only go as deep, and the line can only come down as far as like the least integrated person or the least like insecure person. So as soon as we start talking about something that might be considered like woo-woo or too girly or emotional or something, people will shut it down. But if we create what's called a safe space and we can talk about those things, it's almost like even just saying it, it releases it. You know, it's like the charge is gone. And if you're seen from other people with that, it can be very healing, because it starts to let go of this embodied shame that we might have around having feelings or having problems or fears.
Yeah.
Like as a man, you should have everything perfect. Like, no, it's like we're all fucking human. So let's talk about it and realize together that we're all human. And I think that's where the gold is, really.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, very powerful thing. And
excited to continue the journey.
yeah.
Mr. Schwarzgruber, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. We've had a good one. Jesus, I think this is the longest podcast I've ever done. And there's so many more avenues we could have gone down.
Yeah.
We'll save them for round 2.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. If someone wants to find out more about you, and how would they do that?
They could do that on Instagram.
You can do it on Instagram.
Yeah.
So I can put your Instagram in the little bio below.
Yeah.
And we're going to be looking at doing some retreats in Europe this summer and all the future summers, and maybe in Bali soon as well. And if someone was really interested in the polarity and the dating relationship side of things, how might they get in touch, or what kind of stuff could you help people with that?
Yeah, that's, again, Instagram is probably the easiest, as you're going to post this on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the polarity thing is one of the main focuses for sure. And I just have, to close it out, I have another good example as to what men are doing wrong in Ukraine very often. And it is that, and that is also why retreat and brotherhood and circle is so important, is that we need to be able to share our emotions, but we don't know when and where to do it. And women actually don't like it when guys come and whine and complain and constantly, basically complaining about their issues. And that's something that men really, that's why it's important to have a brotherhood, male friends, where you can go and say, I have those insecurities, I have those issues, it's important to talk about it, and the guys say, okay, let's do this together. And to your partner, really, they want you to say, hey, I need your support in this and that, and they will happily do that. But if you, for example, you're insecure about your business or money, and you say, oh, I don't know what to do, and because she can't offer you any solution for that, she doesn't know anything about your business, and it makes her feel unsafe. So to learn how to separate these things and what to talk about with whom, with the guys and with the partner, just to allow her to keep that masculine picture of you, is also going to keep the passion alive. Because if you see her as the feminine and she sees you as the masculine, and you allow each other that.
She looks to you for safety, and you're like, oh, I'm so scared.
This is just, this is just really important and powerful.
So finding healthy outlets for those parts, knowing that they're all welcome, but just choosing when and where to share them, where we show up. I love that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Thanks for joining me, mate. And we'll have round 2, I think, very soon.
Cool. Looking forward.